it again.
Mm.
And we were like, what the fuck?
Bros.
So I was like, man.
Make bigger meals or more?
Yeah, I need to make more meals.
I actually used the DALL-E to, not this one, but the other one, create the kind of like back image.
Which one?
The AI one that was the meanderings that was released on Sunday. I'll show you in a second.
Yeah, show me a second, because I can't remember thinking that it looked like I didn't think it was by you. Like I think that it wasn't by you.
We should be live now as well. Here we go. 3, 5, 6, 3, 5, 5. This one. It's got to be this one. That was the image it created. That thingy.
Oh, what did you put into it?
I think like AI face on a computer or something like that.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I like the stuff, man. You're going to be using it now?
Well, so I have been recently. For those who are wondering, I was being a little bit sneaky, a little bit naughty, unintentionally, kind of by just taking images from Google Image and using them as for some of our chapter art and stuff.
Yep.
And yeah, eventually was like, oh, okay, well, I probably shouldn't do that. So then I started using some like free images, which didn't require attribution or anything.
Yep.
But now with this stuff, I'm like, I might as well. Like, I'm just using it for the background, so it's not super important.
Yeah.
I can.
Surely there's something in their terms and conditions of like you can't monetize with it. But is DALL-E? Are you accessing it through OpenAI, or is it separate to?
I can't remember how I got to it. I got to it somehow, but yeah,
must be open as well.
It was not a not super complicated.
Yeah. Okay. So I've been wanting to play with the full DALL-E, but I haven't been able to. Just because it wasn't available to like public use, I guess, unless you got invited.
Yeah.
So I want to play around with that.
Man, you're not invited like me, obviously. Like me.
Fuck. The immortals elevating.
Here we go. Is anything happening? It says it's upcoming. Why aren't you live? Oh, no. Patricia's there, so we should be live, I guess. That's good. It is good to know. But why can't I see this? I was in the wrong one. I need to go onto the other channel.
A different one.
7. Here we go.
Good.
Yeah, okay. All right. That sounds pretty good as well. Let me join into here. Patricia, let me know if this is my reindeer ears are too
if
loud.
you can hear them.
I found them on a run.
So picked them up off the ground.
Yeah, midway through the run, I just chucked them on my head.
Good.
And yeah, that was.
Some people would have been
Christmas spirit.
Some people would have been disturbed or they would have been like, "What? You didn't start the run with these things?" Like, yeah, I was hiding them.
No one's watching. No one's watching me. Guess how long I ran for?
Oh, when was this?
Saturday afternoon after the Christmas party.
Oh, after the Christmas party. Damn, you wouldn't have been drinking much then.
I had 1 beer.
Nah, you ran 3 kilometers.
Now, I actually don't know, but it's from kind of like Kangaroo Point in through into South Bank, all the way to the bridge, the other pedestrian bridge at the far end of South Bank.
Yep, Kurilpa Bridge.
Yep, across that into the city, all through the Botanic Gardens, back across the Goodwill Bridge.
Yeah, that would have been a good length of time.
Yeah, I was there for ages.
I was going to say, did it take you like over an hour?
Oh yeah, I was gone for like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
ages. But there's more. Some funny stuff related to that.
Was that full running, or did you do
absolutely
a couple of walks, couple of runs, couple of walks?
Yeah. It was the old shuffle. Hopefully it'll come up. She says un poquito más adelante. Does that mean a little bit louder?
Un poquito más.
XA adelante.
What?
Or maybe she wants my ears more forward.
Oh yeah, that's what she wants.
Cool. Do you try to do you mind just messaging the group?
Can't. Phone's dead, folks. That's what happens.
Let me do it.
Well, I probably could on my watch.
That's alright, I got it. We don't have to be exactly on time.
Or do we?
I probably should be, but...
Or do we?
We're only a minute or two late. We'll start in 1 exact minute. Para, si. Yes. Here we go. Posting this. We're live. Cool. All right. So I'm running this one. Got to get up the most important thing, which I've forgotten to do, which is the audio template. So yeah, basically, I'll say it now before we begin. Basically, my run was, what I would do is I would jog until I see a girl, chat to her, something would happen or not.
Yeah.
Then immediately afterwards, I would just run until I found the next girl. And then
repeat.
So it was very, very stop-start.
That's interesting.
And I actually enjoyed the method, apart from, because it allowed me to actually chat with 8 girls, I think, in that time, which is
it's actually quite time efficient.
And I wasted a lot of time.
It's one every 15 minutes. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I wasted a lot of time going kind of to that other bridge, because there was no one around there. I was like, why am I running here? There's no girls around here. This is silly. So I can definitely make it more time efficient. And but one of the things was, because I would stop and start, I'd get cold basically every single time. And when I was coming back right near the end, and I was probably 2 kilometers away from the car, my left knee just did this weirdest thing that's never happened before, and it started having this jabbing pain. Even walking was kind of hard.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I guess I'm not jogging anymore, and so I just walked all the way
rest of
back.
the way.
So I got back so long.
Oh
after
yeah,
dark.
because that walk would have been like 40 minutes or something.
Yeah,
like
it was
that.
ages.
Yeah.
But it was fun. And
Yeah, that's a different experience.
yeah, it was. I was like, oh, okay, I could do this. I could do this for sure. This is
It's a good mix. That's a really interesting mixture.
This is doable.
It's a workout and an approach.
Workout / become more social. All right. Okay. Sweet. If I minimize this a little bit and I get up my notes, and then I'll kick us off. Here we go. Go. We all can be mortals. Yeah, that is it. We are mere mortals. Welcome everyone to the Mere Mortals podcast. You have Kyrin here.
One on the other side.
One on the other side. And today is a Musings episode, a live one, which we do every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And I picked the topic for today. There's a themed one. So it's a deep conversation with a lighthearted touch, focusing on the deep today.
Yep.
I picked this one, and it was because I read this book here, The Age of Alexander by Plutarch. I'll give it to Juan so he can have a little look-see. And I've already done a book review on that, so this is kind of expanding upon some of the notes.
And if you want to see Kyrin wearing half a shirt, make sure you go check out the video.
Yeah. Some people enjoyed my Greek attire, which is basically the random white blanket that we have that I have in the closet. So I was going through this book, and then afterwards I was just explaining some of the ideas to people, and because I was just getting out and about a lot recently, and I was trying to explain the book, and I was like, a lot of it talked about character and virtue of these people, and kind of focusing upon that and how that applied to them as leaders. And yeah, I got into some fun conversations around whether it is useful to pursue virtue and to try and build your character. I thought, damn, this sounds like something the mere mortal should talk about.
Yeah, that does indeed.
So, basically it was like cultivating virtue in the modern world. And I'm taking off these reindeer ears just in case they're being a bit too noisy. So one, if you had to guess what virtue, the definition of virtue or character is, what do you think it would be?
Oh, I'd say at its most basic, deed or action, basically, in essence.
Okay. What do you mean? Like it's...
So I think if you look at the Aristotle definitions of the great virtues or the characteristics, I think virtue is like Latin for virtue, and translated to need, I think it is.
Need, okay.
Need, or like, sorry, not need, deed. Or to act. So it's kind of like the translation of these values actually being the actful or the action that comes around behind them. That would be my guess.
Okay. So the two that I've got up here, and this is just from Oxford Languages, first thing showing up on Google. Maybe I should have used ChatGPT.
We have to use ChatGPT.
And it says the behavior showing high moral standards for virtue.
Mm-hmm.
And for character, it says the mental and moral qualities distinctive to an individual. So in this case, if we're building character, we're going to be building mental and moral qualities. And it doesn't actually say whether the morals are good morals or bad morals.
Correct.
Just says morals. So you could add.
You could say you got bad character.
Yeah, exactly. So a little definition for us there. I'll go to kick us off with. I'll say a story just to show my how hard virtue is to actually implement into the world. So I did think about this, and it was like front of mind this last week. So I was like, okay, I'll try and live maybe even more focusing upon virtue than I normally do. It's not normally something that's real front of mind, but I was like, okay, this week I will. Man, you get tempted so often to not do it, to not do the right thing. And so in this case, I was talking just before the podcast began on how I actually met a girl on one of these runs that I went.
Yep.
I didn't actually have my phone with me, so she got my number, and then we started messaging. I was like, okay, let's meet up on Monday evening. Now I was actually feeling kind of sick on Sunday, and I was like, oh, I'm not feeling super good. Monday, I was still feeling relatively good, but I was like, I don't know how healthy I feel right now. Yep. But I want to meet this girl. What do I do? Should I?
Do you go? Don't tell her about the sickness.
Yep. And I did the wrong thing, man. I didn't tell her about it. Now, thankfully, sometimes the universe works out well, and she cancelled on me.
Oh, okay. This was the universe telling you, hey, you should have cancelled this already. Okay.
Exactly. Or moved it to a different date.
Okay.
And so it was just one of those ones where I was like, I even in my mind, I was like, look, the real virtuous thing should be to probably say, look, I'm feeling a little bit sick. It's probably not, I'm feeling okay today, but I still probably have a little bit of something. We should probably meet just, especially Corona times and all that jazz. But the mental reasoning just kept coming of why it didn't really matter. Maybe I'm over-analyzing it and she wouldn't actually care. Maybe she loves germs. Who the fuck do I know? Why should I even bring it up?
Yeah.
But I think the right thing would have been to not just to move it and say, this is what should have been done. So
would you have accepted if you had just said, telling her, hey, by the way, I'm sick, I'm feeling kind of unwell, do you want me to move it?
See that, yes, that once again, that probably would have been the right thing to do.
Okay.
And in that case, it's
it's on her court.
Then it's taking away that reasoning
so that's still would hold valid. Okay, cool.
So it's very hard to do. It's kind of like the point I'm getting at here. Even when you're thinking about it and you kind of know what's right to do, you can still get sucked into not doing it. So I don't know about you, but how much do you think about virtue even before this in your character, or building good character, or showing virtue in your everyday life? Do you have moments like this where you will come across a thing and you know what the right thing to do is, but you kind of selfishly I want to do this,
absolutely, man. There's so many times, even very, very simple things. For me, I think often you'll talk about it where you'll have specific actions where you'll pick up some rubbish and you'll put it in the bin. There's so many times when I'll be walking down the street and I'll see some rubbish, and it is achievable for me to bend down and get it, but I won't. I'll just keep walking. I'll be like, even though in my mind it's oh, I should do that, but for whatever reason it's nah, I'm gonna keep on walking. That's what I'm gonna keep on doing.
See, I can kind of understand that one, but maybe this is where it's virtue should be hard, because the kind of reasoning I sometimes use is, if I pick up that one, I can see another piece there and another piece there and some in the garden over there. I'm not going to get to where I want to go if I pick up every piece of rubbish. And so is picking up one piece of rubbish making any difference? Or is this just me trying to placate myself into thinking I'm doing something?
Yeah, okay. That's a fair point.
Is it worth going in, 1% or is this something that needs to be done 100%? You know, it's up for debate. I think that probably is one of those ones where it's like over-analyzing. Just pick up the fucking rubbish, you know?
True, exactly. Yeah. Well, one of the things that like finally got my phone back up.
Oh, wow.
So who knows how long this is going to last? But the Aristotle. So this was straight away where my mind went to when this conversation was like, oh, okay, character and virtues. I've just finished reading Ryan Holiday's Courage.
Courage is
No, that's the first one. Courage.
Courage is Calling.
Courage is Calling. That's the one. Courage is Calling, and it is his brand new series of the 4 virtues, which is the virtues that there could be more. They could be detailed in different ways, but I think Aristotle obviously made them quite famous, which was prudence, so the practical wisdom; justice, so that's judging well; fortitude or courage, so fear and heroism. I guess I was reading a lot of that, and then temperance. I guess it's just the emotional handling. And so, I mean, from that perspective, absolutely, I can call out like so many examples in each of them where I'm like, oh, maybe this is the characteristic or the way that I would want to emulate. And that's, I guess, why I have a scale of my daily checks of eminent human being. And I would say that the very top one of those, like a 5, would be me probably meeting all of these characteristics and virtues almost 100%, almost like, you know, infallibly.
How much do you think there are if you had to chuck a number onto it? Of just like the characteristics and virtues that you'd maybe want to show in a day, you know, like a, you know, if you is it like 10 decisions that you think that would probably, I'd say like if I was to show character and virtue in a day, it would probably be making 6 good decisions, something like that.
Ooh,
I don't think there'd be too many where it's like, okay, Kyrin, what do you do here? What's the right thing to do here?
Oh, no, I think there'd be a lot more. There'd be a lot for me. Okay. I think but maybe I'm thinking like the character and virtue would be like the right decision at every interaction, at every action point where it's not already like the default thing. So, you know, for me, it's like between a working set when I'm working out already and I'm moving, it's not often that I'm having to put in any extra effort or I'm having to really consciously think of, oh, okay, what's the right character here? What's the right level of virtue? It's going to come now. It like kind of comes by default on what I want it to be. Although, you know, there might be a one workout set that'll be like, you know, I'm not courageous enough to go
to lift the weight.
Well, it'll be like, because the level of courage is like, and reading about this particularly how to lift the weight, but it's like, there's fear, and fear is what holding you back from courage, and then on the other side of courage is the heroism or being heroic. But one aspect of fear could be simply just like, I don't want to do that because X. I have a fear that, you know, maybe I'm going to look silly doing this particular lift and I'm going to fail, or I'm going to look like I'm not lifting enough like that much the guy, or something like that. That could be fear in that side of courage. So, you know, that would happen maybe 1% of the time in my working out. So it's not like I'm often having to make those decisions. But to show exemplary virtues and characters across my day, I think it would be a very conscious decision in almost every interaction. So if you really think back to a day of interaction, and this depends, I guess, how many things just are like clockwork in your day and are not. But in all of the cases, if you were to look back on your day and you examine like every single bit to go, okay, I live to like my 100% character and virtues.
Yeah, well, it's like, you know, from immediate wake up, what's the first thing you do? Is it be thankful for something? Is it like me and stretch and, you know, look at the blind, open it so you get a bit of sun in, rest back, you know, hands behind head. And I probably do that for, I don't know, 2 minutes. Is that the most virtuous thing that can be done? You know,
but I think this is the difference, because in all this conversation is like, you could have the external, what is the best character and what's the best virtue? And I guess that in a way does denote what a good character is and a bad character is, but that's maybe more so as a community of humans, we kind of have a view of what is good and what is bad, and that goes to the character and ethics and morals. But I think internally, you know, you can't really compare yourself to what is supposed to be the communal good. I think you can only compare yourself to, okay, well, what's for me, what means to be a good character or have good characteristics and have good values, morals, ethics that suit your view of it. Because if you're trying to achieve whatever, some mythical top is. Well, I don't think many people are going to be doing that.
Yeah. So I got two things. I suppose that how would I describe this? That I thought were kind of maybe useful. That there may be like good pointers on the on maybe why it's just interesting. Let's put it that way. So one of the things I was thinking about was I feel it like caps the negative and it's not necessarily highlighting positive things. So when I was looking at a lot of the examples in the book, most of the times I feel like the people who were really virtuous, yes, it would show a thing that they did. One, for example, which I screwed up in the book review, I said Timoleon when I meant Dion. Dion goes, saves the city, and then everyone there is like, "Fuck you, Dion. We never needed you anyway." So he's like, "All right, I'm hiking over here."
See you later.
Goes to another city. They elect, some guy who's pandering to the mob and is like, "I'll give you, like I'll distribute all these things." Dion's been, talking shit about Dion. Then he fucks it up, and they're basically begging Dion to come back and save them again.
Yep.
And he goes, "I'll come again. I'll save you again."
Yep.
And he goes back, and then the guy who was stirring up all this trouble and whatnot, everyone's begging him like, "Kill this dude. This dude is gonna cause you troubles again and again and again."
Yeah, get rid of him.
And he goes, "No, I'm not gonna get rid of him." And yeah, sure enough, this dude causes troubles again, and it's kind of like, I don't know. It felt like for me, it wasn't. If you take the whole sum of it, it wasn't necessarily them showing really, really positive traits, which was like, "Oh wow, this guy's a hero," or "Wow, he's an amazing leader," or something like that. It was more they were just the ones who were leaders and survived the gauntlets of bribery, making bad mistakes, of getting too greedy and trying to overtake an army where they had maybe a good advantage in numbers but poor advantage in terms. Maybe they weren't showing patience. It was more like that they just survived by doing like kind of the bare minimum of not fucking up, but it was like the virtue that rose them to get there, whereas all the bad leaders were like, that guy's corrupt, that guy's attacking armies because he just wants personal prestige and pride. He's destroying other people's lives just because for his own sake, sort of thing. So I was definitely thinking like, okay, maybe when you're thinking about cultivating virtue and whatnot, maybe the best way to think of it's not, I'm going to one day be the guy who helps the granny across the road or saves this person or gets known for my superior virtue.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just like, I just got to do the things like look at FTX. What can I do to not be like Sam Bankman-Fried?
Yeah, okay.
Look at, other people famous sportsmen who, sure they reached a high level, but there's kind of like a sour taste in the mouth. Let's choose John Terry because I know him.
Yep.
Chelsea captain. He slept with his teammate's wife or ex-girlfriend or something like that. I can't remember what it was. It's like, it leaves a sour taste in the mouth of the man. What can I do to not be like that, rather than how can I be like, I don't know, Mother Teresa or something. So what do you think about that? It's just avoiding temptation rather than doing good is perhaps the way to think about it.
Yeah. It reflects of something similar around when it's hard times, or sort of like the mentality that's like, everything can be really good when it's in good times.
Yeah.
When it's delight and when things are working really fine.
Yeah.
Fantastic. In fact, if you're a leader, if you're leading a team, if you're leading people, if you're, the top of your league, whatever it may be, when things are going good and are running red hot, well, fuck yeah, it's going to be easy to be virtuous and to be all morally up on your stand and to be like, yeah, I've got a great character because you're fucking always winning.
Yeah.
And then what happens when,
I'll distribute the money to my team. I'll give you all bonuses.
Yeah, everyone, and there's been these big jokes at the moment, there's big memes going through in usually like consulting Instagram pages, but a few other places where it's like, 2021 Q1 when everything was going well in the economy, it's like, yeah, everybody gets bonuses. Yep, you can work from home, all this stuff. And then it's like Q1 2023 and it's like, sorry, we're laying all of you off and the remaining ones are working double as hard and all this sort of shit. Yeah. So it's like, when the good times are flying, man, easy to be virtuous, easy to be morally, in a good position,
Okay,
good to have good
yeah.
character. But when it's the hard time, and I guess this is the example here of, it's really in the suffering, in the dark times, in the bad times, in the challenging times, that displaying character and virtues
That's a good
is
point.
where it matters. I think so. Like your example there is like, oh yeah, absolutely, because it almost kind of like, it doesn't really matter what that display of character and virtue is in the good times, but it's when like things like that are happening. So again, perhaps the city, you just saved the city again, and hey, this person here is challenging once again, and it's going to produce more challenges, more things. And it's like, okay, what are you going to do in those moments when you have to display some sort of character and or your value where it's against a challenging action, event, whatever you want to call it. And it's, okay, that's where it matters. And I think that's where you see, and maybe actually thinking back to it, maybe in the original question when you said like, day to day, maybe it'd be more specific as like, okay, if you want to maybe not focusing on all the time, but it's like, hey, when you have those events,
When you're stressed out a bit,
when you're stressed, you're feeling bad, you've got challenging moments, whatever, have that front of mind, because then you'll be like, okay, this is when it's actually really important. And that's, I think, overall what probably makes a lot of big distinctions on, hey, that's a bad leader or that's a bad person. Nobody says, you know what? I'll tell you what, if a soccer team's winning, right?
Yeah,
if you're winning 20-0, right, in a game, and someone scores an own goal, man, everyone's going to be cool to them. The captain's going to be like, all good, mate. Don't worry about it. Clap on the back. We'll be better. We'll practice. Not a worry, right? What happens if they do that and you lose? You
like
lose 2-1.
1-0.
Yeah. You're it's
1-0
1-0. No, in fact, you're 1-0. Yeah, you got a penalty to kick. You're like, I'll put it forward. You kick, you miss it, and then your whole team's like, useless piece of shit, absolutely just devastated. I knew we shouldn't have ever, you should be never born, that sort of level. There's okay, maybe the same sort of action could have happened, but did you display the same type of character and virtue that you would have displayed in both actions? And I think it's the hard times, those ones. Okay, have that front of mind. So I go, okay, that's probably where it's the most important. And so in that example where it's like, was it cap the negative? Sorry, caps the negative. I think there's some truth to it. There's some truth to that in like that sort of story.
Yeah, well, I like what you're mentioning about turning it off and on, because there's definitely something you can't think about all the time. There's no way you can keep, what's the most virtuous thing to do in my head at this very moment? Much like when I was first saying, okay, I want to get kind of elite level at hand balancing. There was a small period where it was, okay, every decision in the day, is this going to make me a better hand balancer? Is doing this book review a good use of time? Should I be doing something else here? Could I be doing something here? And it was exhausting. There was no way I could keep it up. I kept it up for a day and was like,
there's too much.
This. Yeah.
Well, there's an example. So here's one of the virtues: courage, right? So, or perseverance. So the book. I'll release this probably like a month from when this thing comes out. But if I ever get into it,
one's been having.
God, I've been persevering.
He's been.
Good God,
I hope you've been showing some virtue recently.
Jeez. But basically, from a perspective of how you started with fear, and so you want to overcome the fear in this particular virtue to get to a courageous spot. And so that's kind of like, okay, when it doesn't have to necessarily be a bad time, but if you're in a spot where, hey, you should be showing the virtue of courage because you're fearful for insert lots of different reasons. Okay, you want to try and overcome that and be a bit more of a virtuous and he has been courageous individual. Cool. But then there's the other extreme. And while Ryan didn't really talk about it as the other extreme, it's kind of like just even better. I think you can make a good call for being almost too extreme, because it's the heroic level. So you can be courageous, but to a heroic level, to the point that it's, even beyond your one self. So you're courageous for the group, for the people, for everything else beyond just you. Kind of an example of, if you pick up one rubbish piece, maybe you're going to go pick up every rubbish piece in the whole world. And they have one example in the book around, hey, this guy saw, I think it was a girl drowning. I can't remember the age of the girl, but he was like, I need to go save her. Jumped into the lake or the water. He saved her, but he died. So it was like that kind of example of like, and everyone's like, wow.
How does that even happen, man?
I don't know how that actually happens.
If it's the ocean, I think I can kind of imagine how that would happen in the ocean. But if it's a lake,
I can only imagine
fuck's
like
he-
if you're swimming around and like you get your foot stuck on like a tree trunk at the bottom or something weird like that maybe, but like to me, unless or it's like whitewater rafting or some crazy
Yeah,
shit and you get smashed.
I just don't see how she survives and he
But he doesn't? Yeah.
that's
Neither,
crazy.
Neither. But in any case, they were like hero.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
did he in that moment, that really like critical moment, did he show full virtue of courage? Absolutely. And many people, like I'm going to say, there's a lot of people across the world who probably wouldn't be able to do that. I even think, obviously I don't know until the moment, but I'm pretty sure I have like very much like, oh, do I do it? Do I not? Like, is it safe? Like,
Yeah,
what's happening?
I would hesitate for sure.
Yeah, there's hesitation.
It would take me a bit to commit.
Yeah, so like you want to do it. So there's that, but then it's like, okay, like that's one virtue that's there. But now put this exact same scenario, but now it's a bird. It's a bird that's dying in the water, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, are you going to display the full level of this virtue? Like, oh man, I've got to go save it. Like, I've got to go do it now. Obviously, it's a different animal. It's not a human and whatever.
Yeah.
And so you'd have to be pretty extreme to go down the path of be heroic to jump in and save this bird. But hey, some people out there will be like, oh no, we
People
should
do that with dogs and house fires.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the moniker hero gets thrown around for people who go into a house
Sure.
to save a
them.
dog.
Now, it's a little bit in the sense of if you were doing that all the time to be really virtuous, almost to the extreme of some of these understandings, it's also going to be bad. Like whether it's just taking the mental capacity to be trying to hold up these virtues of be a character for that level, either exhausting or just not being possible. As you say, you try to keep it up for as long as possible, and it's like, okay, no, this is like quite difficult.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right. Well, I've got two more notes. One related to long-term and short-term games, and as well as how to maybe know if someone has some character. But we'll maybe do some Boostagram.
We'll do Boostagram Lounge first.
So I might run this one because there was a couple of missing boosts from
Oh
last
yes,
week.
we did get advice about this.
So,
okay, cool.
This is on me. On me because I'll take responsibility for Satoshi's stream. So because that's the thing I use. I have once again been looking at getting a Raspberry Pi 4, and I was like, if you look at all my notes here, they're all about Raspberry Pis, all the stuff I need.
Okay.
So
It's coming.
Watch this space. Watch this space.
That's what God made 2023.
So there was Patricia was in the chat, but I think we have a bit of a quiet one this week.
Okay.
Everyone's getting in close to the Christmas period, so maybe they're all doing the Christmas shopping. But we had Petar come in last week, a live boost, but not in the like lit tag, but on one of the episodes. So this was for the Fighting the Negative Thoughts episode, and he says. He sent in 555 sats, 55,000. Dang, thank you, Peter.
Peter, huge. Thank you very much.
Very much appreciated, my friend. And he says, I always saw my brain producing depression chemicals as its way of telling me that something in my life needs to change. Once I saw depression as just another evolutionary survival tool, I decided to listen to those thoughts rather than fight them. Kind of sounds like you might already agree. Yeah. Is depression evolutionary? I'm sure there's people who would argue that. And I'm pretty sure I have read a book somewhat related to that. I'm not sure if it was the that one by Andrew Solomon, The Noonday Demon, but I think I have seen others arguing that.
As in for or against?
As in, depression is an
evolutionary thing.
Yeah, it'll help you survive, which is just ridiculous considering how bad it is if you look at it in terms of stats of life expectancy, overall health. You know, it's so bad for you. That shit is so bad for you just across like the whole gamut of things. Which like, how does that make sense? You know, so I don't know. I don't have more to add, to be honest.
My only thought would be, my only thought would be, what's the opposite? Perhaps is that, you know, if you didn't have it evolutionarily wise, you know, put upon you of having that depression or I guess feeling that way, and then potentially making you act about it because you feel in a shit way. You know, if you didn't have that particular emotion or those chemical happening in your body, would that be because then you become maybe more dissociated with society and, you know, evolutionary? Maybe back in the day, if you de-associated yourself from society and you became, you know, if you're allowed, what maybe you were saying is like the depression, just the feeling of being okay to be alone and not part of society would get you like straight up killed because you just have no food.
Yeah, I'm to be honest, I'm leaning more towards it's like a side effect of like modern living, or I know
I'd say I wouldn't say that because depression also impacts
it
animals
has,
and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
it has existed in the past. I should maybe say it's maybe exacerbated by modern living. Maybe it's a bit more common than it used to be, which I think the stats would back that up. But in terms of it in instigating change, that doesn't make sense to me because it kind of forces you, like it spirals you down so that you don't do anything. Like it reinforces bad habits when you're really depressed.
I mean, the only thing I would say is maybe Peter means it is in the sense of it should be
like
a warning signal.
Thing. Yeah.
It should be like it should inspire a warning signal to you really have to do something.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Peter.
Yep.
The other one he had here was 7,777, also on Fountain, much like the other one. And this was for cutting complainers from your life. So this was the one where Juan was taking the ball. He says, totally agree with Juan on this point. Everyone knows someone like that. By giving them a sympathetic ear, you are actually enabling the self-destructive behavior. They might not see it this way, but you're doing them a huge favor by cutting them off in the long run.
Yep.
Cut them, people.
Agreed. Help them get better. Help them be better.
Yeah, I'm 70% of the way.
70%.
Yeah,
we'll get him 100% of the way after he watches the game tonight.
And yeah, then on terms of the other Boostagram, so I was sending in quite a few tests for myself after this because they didn't come through last week, which was a bit disappointing. And yeah, I was finding that there was a couple of tests missing. So I'm not sure if I did a test 3. I definitely did a test 2 and it didn't come through. So Satoshi's stream has been a very good service and helped us a lot. But
starting to show
when we're missing out on that. And it's when the worst thing was when I was doing the trouble solving with them. They were very responsive on the Telegram chat and stuff, but they weren't seeing what the problem was. And so it was like, okay, I'm not sure I can get help from them because it's not.
If it's even a black box for them, then it's a little bit like.
Exactly.
Well, thank God you're learning how to code.
Thank God I'm learning how to code.
And downstream coming soon to your
neck minute, bare metal, never leaving my room. Crumbs, Dorito crumbs on my shirt.
7-Up can.
Coding a handstand program to handstand for me. Done.
Damn.
But the other one that came in here was from Peter again. Peter, so generous, mate. Thank you. And he says, I wonder if you can hire an AI host for the podcast. I'm sure CSB, so this is Comic Strip Blogger for those who don't follow Podcasting 2.0, could whip something up in no time. Hell no. I tried listening to his AI.cooking show. I hate it. I really hate having an AI voice listening to it. And I would hate having one on here. So
there you go. That's the answer.
No, I'd hire someone. Maybe I'd hire someone to pretend like they were an AI. That could be a funny spin on it.
Actually, interestingly,
I think that would be great. Actually,
that would be kind of cool.
You could really mess around with some people. What were you gonna say, man?
Just in terms of voice acting. So Tim Ferriss's latest project. I'm not even going to say it's NFT. His latest project of the fiction work that he's doing. Cockpunch, and the latest episodes have started to come out on it. So he's actually released 2 episodes.
Nice, that's good.
And I'll tell you what, man. I genuinely didn't know what to expect. Like I did not know what to expect when he said this thing about it. And I was really thinking about like NFT, and you're thinking about the image and the maybe how much it's worth or whatever. Kudos for the first time in a really long time, and maybe it's because I've been reading a lot of self-help book kind of style or a lot of Ryan Holiday. Like hooked straight away in the sense of like the lore that he's trying to put together, the details behind it, but specifically the voice acting that he got on the actual podcast. I was like, I genuinely just cannot wait to listen to the next thing or to read the next thing or find out about the next thing. And I've almost forgotten about the NFT itself. Like I've almost forgotten about, it's an NFT that was worth something. It's like, oh shit, I just want to be like, I want to know more about this clan or about this particular battle and who's this thing. And I was like, very well done. But kudos to Tim. The voice acting on that is phenomenal. Like really, really rock solid. And I was like, well done. It's also the #1 fiction podcast right now in the world.
Yeah.
So I was like, Well done with him.
I'll be surprised if that stays there.
I would be surprised. I would be
competitive category.
amazed. But honestly, on its own, you almost don't have to even think about the NFT. Like the way that the podcast is set up,
Well, I imagine
it's like it's just like a side piece basically. And I was like, that's really cool. It's really, really cool.
Yeah. So how does that relate to Ryan Holiday? Just because you're sick of Ryan Holiday, so you wanted something?
No,
different?
I think it's just lots of self-help, lots of reality books. So it's just like, if anyone's listened to a Ryan Holiday book or read a Ryan Holiday book, which I've now read 4 of them in probably 5 months, it's very short chapters, which I really like, but it's a lot of, here's a real life example. Here's the idea. Here's how it's been applied in the, in real world in that particular example. Here's how perhaps you should apply it.
Yeah.
Over and like rinse and repeat. So lots of real life.
I'd get bored by those. Reading 2 in a row would bore me for sure.
Yeah. I'm ready for I even stated out loud to someone. I was like, I'm ready for a fiction book.
Yeah.
That's basically what I was like.
Okay, and we actually had a live one coming in just as well. It says, proud mum of Liam F. Merry Christmas, Juan and Kyrin.
Woo! Thank you very much, proud mum of Liam F. Right back to you, mama, and Liam F as well.
Hopefully we'll see her soon.
Oh,
coming up to Brisbane.
Right, she is coming up to Brisbane soon. Yeah, it'll be good to see her.
Keen as beans. Okay, the other couple of things that I wanted to bring up.
Yes,
so I was talking about long-term gains and short-term gains.
Games.
So I was watching Coffeezilla on the Lex podcast.
Yes.
So
Don't spoil it for me.
Okay, I won't. All right. I was just going to say, Coffeezilla is a guy who kind of calls out scammers and fraudsters. That's his shtick. I first heard about him actually from my brother talking about SafeMoon, which once again I have no idea how he made money off SafeMoon. That is wild. That is just and like a good stash of money as well. Him and his friends. That's crazy. Anyway, they were talking about journalism and reputation. Did you get up to that part?
I haven't listened to a single thing.
Okay. Well. I don't think I'm really ruining anything, but he was basically saying there's with journalism there's kind of like you can get short-term gains by play the short-term game by getting interviews with people by sucking up to them. Yeah, we're gonna write this puff piece about you. Yeah, no, we won't ask you about that thing, and then they'll chop it afterwards and make you look like an ass. And he was saying how this happened to him. Not a fan of it. And then there's like the long-term journalism, which is probably someone more like maybe Matt Taibbi or I don't know. I don't really follow any even independent journalists. I don't really follow.
I would say Lex. I mean, you don't call him a journo, but he's like
he's
playing those long-term games.
Maybe Coffeezilla is if you consider the journalism is very vague nowadays of what is and what isn't. And he was saying that those ones is more about reputation. You treat them as fairly as possible, like as in a fair and justly and as fair manner as possible. Yep. And sure, you might not get the big hits of the expose or this sort of thing, but over the long term, you'll maybe get access to more, higher quality people because they'll be willing to talk to you. So sort of like. Does that apply here, do you think? Do you think virtue and building character is a short-term versus long-term trade-off? If you build character, is it something that pays off in the long run? And that's why you would maybe want to do it? And that's why it's kind of hard and no one really talks about it because, you get screwed over in the short term. Or is this just the wrong way to think about it?
Folly? No, I agree. I think absolutely. I think that's probably the predominant reason that it is hard. Because if it was by default as humans that we look towards the long-term game rather than the short-term game, then it would be easier for us to make more virtuous, better character calls because we would just default go like, oh, okay, cool, that's better for my long-term, so that's what I'm going to choose. Where I don't think we do that. I think in that sort of scenario, again, take us, for instance. Let's just say that, let's say Binance is about to collapse, right? And we know, and we know some folks in Binance Australia, right? And we go, hey, short term, let's try and get them on the podcast. Say that we're going to be talking about this, but actually, like we'll get them and really ask the hard questions, or mess it up,
cut it,
whatever. But it's like for our own benefit. Now, one of the virtues is justice and the ability of essentially treating everyone the same light in the front, in the face of law, or in the sense of judgment that you're looking in whatever angle. So I'd probably say, you know, the short-term game there for many people would be like, oh, it's exciting, it's inviting. There's a lot of short-term benefits to a lot of different things. You might even try to stretch it in your own way that, oh, well, if I do this, I'll become really well known, and then I can express even better character and even virtues in somewhere else. But I think that is a bit of a folly in terms of like, no, in essence, you should probably be looking at what is always a long-term game, and that'll be always going to be better for you. So, maybe that particular ploy or something else will harm your reputation, will harm whatever. So I think the right thing to do is, okay, what's going to be the best in a very long-term view. So if you were to look back at it, somebody else was going to look back at it many years from now. Hey, was that decision, the right character to make, or the right, virtue, or was it not? And I think often, you say in the Ryan Holiday book with the Courage, a lot of the stories that are listed out in there are not so much stories of, hey, this is what's happening now and here. See how this person's making courage?
Yeah.
No. Nobody says that. Apart from like in the moment things, maybe you'll be like, oh, that person went up and presented. He's courageous. Or, oh my God, he's going to go and do that. Oh, that's courageous. But that expression of, oh, he is this or she is that, is after the action's been taken or the decision to take the action has been done. So always it's sort of like, hey, it's after that fact that the reflection happens to say whether that was a high character move or a high value move, or, the virtue within that was quite high. It's only ever afterwards. And I think more and more as time goes forward, it'll be like, oh, that's when you'll actually inspect, look at the story, whether it's you or other people, to be able to say whether it was a high character thing or however you want to call it. And so the longer term view will, I think, always win out in the, okay, that was probably the right thing to do.
Yeah. See, I'm kind of 50-50. When I think of, let's say, one thing where I think we maybe show it day in, day out is the value for value model. Really, really, really dislike advertising, and the reason for it is, partly due to just pure, on my side at least, partly just due to pure, disgust with how annoying it is. It's in a practicality matter, it is annoying. But then I would say the greater portion is the ethical reasons behind it, the kind of incentives that get caught up in it and whatnot. Do I think the value for value model will, in a monetary sense, pay off for us better, more in the long term? I'm not sure of that. I think that's up in the air. But the feeling that I get from it is certainly much, much more enjoyable. And I would say yes, in the long term, it's like kind of like short bursts of like long-term happiness that culminate in a really nice thing in the end. Whereas, every time if I was doing advertising, it would be like a chip off my soul, like bang, bang, until my heart's all broken and like screwed up and black and shit.
Yeah, advertising money will glue it back together again.
Yeah, a couple billion would get that heart looking good, wouldn't it, Kyrin? So I'm actually unsure as to whether it does pay off in the long term, in terms of measurable things. I think in your own kind of conscious feelings, I think it can, and I think that's probably a lot of the things. I think virtue actually feels good more than accepting bribes and things like that. So when I look at some of the people from the book, some of them didn't end up well. Dion made good decisions, I would say, on the whole. That's the kind of gist I got of him in terms of the 9 characters. I put him up in like number 2 or 3. Yeah. His ending was getting stabbed by random people attacking him, who was sent by someone who we thought was a friend of his, while other friends in the room didn't try to stop those people from attacking him.
Yeah, okay.
Like, what a fucking way to go. That is just a shit way to go. And yet he seemed to live a pretty good life right up until that point as well. So yeah, I'm just unsure as to whether it'll have, really, really good things over the long term. It's
and see, I think this is a critical point to differentiate. And I could imagine some comments around this. Being a virtuous and of a good character doesn't mean you're gonna have a good life.
Yeah,
like that doesn't. It's not like, oh, if you're a virtuous person, you're gonna have a great life. It will happen.
100%.
Wrong. Wrong. You could have a terrible, horrific life that, if reflected back upon, it'll be like, oh, that guy was really virtuous, great character. Got killed though because no one liked them or whatever else. So you also have to be prepared that one is not the other, and you might not get the other ladder, but you might feel better off for it. I think there was I can't remember who it is in the Greek side of things, Epictetus or whoever it was that, the ruler at the time was like, no, I need you to go into there and vote, and I need you to do whatever. And if you get asked this question, then I need you to answer in this particular way. And the guy was basically like, hey, no, like if you ask me this, I'm gonna tell the truth. Maybe it was I can't remember who it was, but it was one of them. And he basically was like, oh no, I'm gonna tell my truth. And if you ask me this question, I'm gonna tell. And the ruler said, in essence, hey, if you say that, I will kill you. And he's like, that's fine. That's my truth. Like I can't not do that. Now, I don't believe he died in that particular scenario, but again, he could have carried it through and be like, hey, I'm asking you. He replies because he's a virtuous person and it's his character. He tells the truth. Dies.
Yeah.
Right now, there was a point in that in the book with Ryan Holiday with Courage. It's like, hey, there is a point where it is going to be like, it is to your own detriment, to your health detriment. Like you're going to die, you're going to get punished or whatever. And there is a choice still to be made there. Now, you could go the path of being extremely virtuous, and he didn't call it out as, that's what I'm saying, the other extreme. But I was like, that is the other extreme, because you can be so virtuous as to not like disregard yourself completely, so that you can be a virtuous person. But perhaps in the capsule of how much good you're doing, and this would be measured in some other different way. If you weren't as virtuous, you might actually end up doing more good for the world. So there is something to be said that, like, hey, if you're really virtuous and you tell the truth, like, say, always you want to be courageous and tell the truth, but you tell, the bad guy that all 100,000 of the really good guys are living there underneath that house and they go and kill them all. It's like, okay, you're a really virtuous person, maybe with the character of never lying, but you led the bad guy to like all these people and killed them all.
Yeah.
Was that a good thing overall? Maybe not.
One of the kind of orators from the book was called Phocion. I believe it's how it's pronounced, although I want to say Phocion. It looks nicer like that. Anyway, he comes across definitely as one of the kind of people with more virtue, more character. He was the one who would continually not accept bribes. So Alexander the Great got pissed off at him because he wouldn't take his money. That's not the kind of person you want to piss off. But he would still be like, no, I'm not taking your money. And, people around him suffered because of that. His wife was kind of continually poor. They were poor. It's hard to tell, rags poor or, dying from, lice in the bed sort of poor.
Yeah.
I think they still maybe had a servant. So it's like, okay, how poor are you really if you've got a servant? It's hard to tell. In any case, he was also kind of renowned, and he got this prestige because he was willing to kind of do deals. He was willing to accept peace from Alexander when he came knocking at the gates of Athens. And it's like, fucking bow down to me or I'm just going to raise your city to the ground. And he's the one who convinces the people, like, he's probably going to fuck us all up. Like, this is, it'd be nice to be an independent, maintain our democracy to the highest level that we have, even though their democracy was only the landowners could vote. So it's like
democratic to an extent.
They did well for their times. Let's give them some credit. But no, he was like, look, at least some modified semi-democracy is better than
no democracy, than aristocracy.
Than Athens being razed to the ground. So there was instances where I could see, okay, like politicking, if you want to call it like that, or compromising, or these things which you'd maybe you'd think would be like bad characteristics or negative virtues. In the long run, they actually led to someone who had what you would say is a virtuous life and a good character. And once again, he got put to death by his fucking friends.
Yep.
Like at least he got to be old when that happened. But Jesus, it's it's a rough world out there.
It is. It is. Well, and here, there's one more example of where you can have great character remembered, and maybe by great virtues, but again, it didn't end up your way, and it was because you did it for essentially the greater good. And some people might go, okay, I can't go to that length of being a character. So if I say to you, what's probably like the strongest warriors out there, what would you think of
nowadays, or just in
no, like ever?
Comes to mind Hannibal, strongest warriors, like the Mongols or something like that. Romans, there's the
something like that. Yeah, I was hoping you were going to say like the Spartans.
Yeah, Spartans,
but basically, so like the I haven't read it, but you have Gates of Fire. I
don't think I've read that.
Oh, you haven't? No, really?
It's in my reading list.
Damn, I definitely want to. Okay, dude, I want to read it. I was after reading latest Ryan Holiday, because he actually has a pretty massive piece on that sort of fight, that epic fight at Thermopylae, whenever it was, and the 300 Spartans. And I was like, dude, I definitely want to read this book now. So put that aside. But in essence, for those who don't know, and I haven't read the full story, but in essence, there was this tiny little space where the Persians were coming to basically take over.
Take over the whole of Greece.
The whole of Greece, and they sent off like the 300 best Spartans that they had at the time to defend it.
With the king.
All of them really knowing, like, hey, we're all going to get killed, but we just have to hold out as long as possible. The actual plan for the whole thing was that it was just a show of, hey, we're Greeks, we're really strong. If we can hold out for as long as possible, then the incoming Persians will see that, these guys are too strong and there's more of them. We don't want to attack them anymore, basically. So they sent 300 against heaps of Persians.
Tens of thousands, probably.
They knew they were going to all get killed. And even there's some stories around now, even like in day 2 and day 3 of fighting, he one of them, supposedly Leonidas tells one of them like, hey, you guys can go back and tell of the story of what's happening. And they're all basically like, no, we're not fucking going. We're staying here and we're fighting. So, you could say that their character and virtues were like extremes to the devotion of Greece, of what they were supposed to be doing and something like that. But all of them died. Now, some people say it's like, that's a pretty pivotal moment, because if that had happened, then maybe all of the West would have been taken over by, these uprising culture. Again, who knows? But,
judging from this book, everyone took over everyone at some point. So I wouldn't put too much store.
Yeah. So I was kind of like, is it? But in any case, it's a little bit like, hey, you might display the best character and just get absolutely reamed for it, but remembered in that particular way. So it's like, how much good is it to yourself versus to the others versus, what if in the end Persia just kept on going and just taken over everybody? Would anybody even remember that particular stand? Maybe not. So
the modern world and virtue. I didn't actually have this written as a note, but I was like, it was in the title, so we should probably highlight this one exact thing. I would not say that our like thoughts on virtue actually are really that different from the Greeks, because I get the feeling like, even though it's talked about, when you talk about virtue and character, you usually think of the Greeks, at least in my mind, or the Stoics, or there's kind of like people who will continually put forth, we do this, this is the way that you should live, here's some examples of it, you want to be trying to do this to the utmost degree, sort of deal. I get the feeling that people back then would be having,
you're talking like during the Greeks and
stuff.
Yeah,
let's just say the podcasters Juan and Kyrin, they're speaking in front of their fucking flock of sheep. And that's their version of podcasting.
With the sheep or raiders.
Virtue. I get the feeling that we would talk about it pretty much the same, where it's like, in the modern world, virtue and shit like that, it doesn't really apply. No one really talks about it. Maybe there's this guy Socrates, but Socrates is not Socrates in our, this kind of amazing guy.
No, yeah.
Back then he was just like the guy who would just not shut up, and it would always question people in this, imagine someone who just kept asking you why.
Yeah. You'd be like, this dude is annoying.
Fuck this guy. Fuck this guy. I get the feeling that One-itis and Kyrin, they would probably say the same things that maybe we would say now, which is, no one really talks about virtue. If they do, it's kind of like archaic. What's the point of it?
That's a good point.
I'm not sure that there has ever been a time where it really actually is the kind of front and center. Everyone thinks about it. Everyone tries to live their most virtuous life. I think it probably is more people just live their normal lives, and a select small group of people will talk about virtues, and Ryan Holiday will do it in the modern version of his books, talking about the Greeks. You know, I do it by doing reviews of Plutarch and Socrates and Epictetus and stuff like that.
Yep.
And we kind of talk about it in the podcast, but it's certainly not. Man, today I was so virtuous because I did this thing.
No one says that. No one says that.
It's, so in the modern world, I think it is worth like jumping into every now and then, getting like a little taste of it, so that, like you said, when it's negative times are coming and something, you can maybe implement it and go and think, oh, maybe this is what I would do, or maybe this is, I'm not that great right now. Kyrin, you did something wrong the other day. You probably should have let that girl know you're going to be sick. Yep. And that was for selfish reasons. What would, a better Kyrin do? Or maybe what would someone who, like very specific, Rushfi, I'll fucking take him because he's gone the full. He probably would be now on his like moral high horse and be like, Kyrin, you wanted to like sleep with that girl or maybe have an interaction with her that was pleasant or something. Orthodox Christianity. If you followed Orthodox Christianity like I do, you probably wouldn't do that. And I'd be like, fuck, you're right. Damn, Roos, maybe I do need to convert. But it's certainly not like there are actually that many people talking about it, really highlighting it now. But I think there are enough where you can get a taste for it, and it's like, it's a tool. I think it's a tool in the toolkit. It's not worth thinking about all the time, much like it's not worth thinking about not lying all the time, or not worth thinking about how can I make sure I'm not greedy all the time. It's just like, use it every now and then, but not too much. Yeah.
I mean, I was trying to just find in my side just that wherever I read that, what virtue actually describes in Latin, and all I could come up with was the actual word for virtue comes from the Latin root of via, vir, which is for man, but it translates to generally, basically, moral excellence. And it kind of got me thinking, we talked about this a little while ago, of just like effective philosophy.
Yep.
But in a similar way, I think the best you can do with moral excellence, because again, what does that even mean? It gets me back into, you're never, as you say, you're never going to say like, oh, what a virtuous day. But we describe it in our day-to-day modern world as, like my actions. And I guess that's why I was saying like a deed or an action. I think it's a description of the actions that you take in the day-to-day, that if you really wanted to, you could map it back to a particular virtue, whether it was judgment or wisdom, temperance, and courage. To one of those four, you might be like, okay, I can see how that maps to a particular virtue. But we're doing it in the day-to-day life of action taking. So I think as long as you're reviewing or looking back at actions, whether they're really good or really bad, I think within them, you'll always find some sort of virtue or characteristic that you can go, okay, cool, my character was bad here. So, if I take an action, let's just say that I was supposed to go and, run 4 kilometers, but I ran 3 kilometers and I lied to myself about it. And I was like, that's enough. I just saw whatever. But reality, I could have done the 4 kilometers.
3.1, round up.
Exactly. Round up from 3.1. You might review that and be like, that's probably a bad character or bad virtue on my own behalf. And, but it's the action that you're reviewing as opposed to in the moment being like, am I virtuous? I think that just gives you maybe a glimpse into the more general, mere mortal way of looking at virtues.
And some of it is quite hidden because at this very moment, there's kind of questions going around about the stability of Binance, so the biggest crypto exchange out there. And neither you nor I are losing our shit or worrying a single iota at the moment. And
I know someone who is.
Yeah.
If they can't get the money out.
Me too. And that is because there was all these little opportunities. We had to be a little bit greedy. Oh, I could maybe keep my Bitcoin here and get a little bit of yield. Get some of that tasty yield. But then we went, okay, I assume you did this at some point where it was, you had the option to. I mean, who doesn't want more money?
Exactly.
Money is nice.
Yep.
But then you went, okay, man, I assume that if your internal thoughts were like mine, were, I like money. Money is nice. But I also like having more money in the long run. And I'm pretty sure the smart people say this is how you get wrecked, or this is if you follow these kind of like negative little things, just a little bit of greed, it's going to come around and bite you in the ass. So
well, that's part of the virtue, right? It's wisdom. It's designed like, hey, what's wisdom? Wisdom's kind of like the information and the knowledge that you gave, but it's actually like applied or you like leveraging it. So otherwise you're not wise about it. So it's like, hey, talking about crypto particularly, lots of exchanges have had issues, FTX obviously, and a few others that are coming onto it. Is the wisest option to still leave your money in vulnerable positions that's not your keys? Maybe not. Maybe not. And so, that in itself is you applying some sort of virtue to the scenario that's occurring.
Yeah. So kind of the one last thing, and then I'll sum up was, okay, what's some actionable things? What's some things that are the mere mortals would like the effective philosophy? So I've written down how to know if someone has character, or maybe how to think about it for yourself as well. So, do you have any? I'll say these and then you can think about it while I say it. So one was, it kind of bleeds out rather than as a conscious action you might get noticed for. So I think if you're looking for someone who has good character or is virtuous, you kind of have to look for like the small, tiny little pieces rather than big actions. Yep. So, go find the obscure podcast of them talking to a nobody, and you're more likely to find hints of whether they're virtuous or not virtuous in that sort of arena. I don't think it can be measured directly. I don't think there's a score of going, this person's 79 out of 100. This
of virtue,
3 out of, 50 or whatever. I think offhand comments actually can reveal quite a lot in the aggregate, as it kind of shows where their mind instantly goes in certain things. So in this case, I was listening to Charles Hoskinson recently, did an AMA, Ask Me Anything, and someone commented he's got this lobster sitting on top of his microphone. It's kind of donated by the community or something, and then the community named it using the governance on Catalyst or something like that. And it was like, that's a nice little example of how governance can work. And someone goes, why is there a lobster on the mic or something? He goes, this is blah, 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 the lobster, the name of the lobster. I'd never sell it, or like, I'm not going to sell it, or something like that. Yeah. And for me, I was just like, why did your mind instantly go to money or talking about selling this thing, even though there was nothing in the question about it? That was one of those ones where I'm like, I think that could be quite telling of a person's character for a little bit. Does this say that much about him in the aggregate? I don't know, but I definitely was like, that's a kind of weird thing. I feel the more relaxed someone is, i.e. not on air, so the longer the medium, the closer you'll get to peeking at the shadow of their character. So you're not even going to see their character full in the face, but you can kind of see the shadow. The kind of like little hint that there's something there behind the person. So the longer I feel it's just harder to fake things, and it is when no one's looking, when I'm on the street, the granny's crossing it, and there's no cameras nearby. There's no one taking photos or anything like that. That's kind of when the character gets showed. Rather than prime, it almost never happens where it's like primetime TV. Everyone's watching right now. Sam Bankman-Fried's going to do something really virtuous, and he's actually got all the billions saved up somewhere. He could have gone away. This was all just an elaborate thing. He had to do it because he wanted to expose like the Epstein killers or something like that. He's gonna, and then he instantly sends all the money out, puts it in a pot. He's no longer a billionaire, but he's solved everything. It's not gonna happen. Like it doesn't happen in prime time like that.
Everyone listening he had money in FTX, like, damn.
Oh, Kyrin, he's gonna do it.
He's
right?
gonna do it.
God. If they do have good virtue, I think they almost certainly won't brag about it. It's just humbleness. I think it's a virtue, and so
in its own right.
So it's very likely. And I think the company they keep or at least tolerate is also a strong indicator. So once again, how actionable was that, Kyrin? It's not super actionable. I think it's more hints to look out for, especially when it's people that you surround yourself with. And people that you listen to. So, CoffeeZilla going on Lex, that kind of gives me a little bit more respect for both of them. So
Sure.
I kind of had like a little, a fair chunk of respect for both of them, and then together, I was like, yeah, you know what?
Trusted parties.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The only thing I would add for me would be, look, many dreams die in suffering. But I would say
Jeez.
that.
Where'd you get that quote from?
But
Is this a one quote? One-itis.
This is one-itis.
One-itis. Fucking hell.
But character gets exposed in the suffering. So I would say that if you want to see the true character of someone or the virtues, I would say see them in the suffering or see yourself in the suffering. So when you know that you're suffering, or when you know that someone else is suffering, and this suffering doesn't have to mean like sweating or dying or something like that. It can be just like challenging times or hard times, or they're put in a position where they're not usually in the safe spot. Inspect closely, because that's, I guess, when you will see the true character of someone really come out. And sometimes I think you can build your character. Yeah, you can build your character and your virtues. I think it's a buildable quality, and we didn't really get into that. But
maybe another episode.
I think it's buildable, but in a lot of ways, there's also predetermined with how you've already applied it through your years of age, right? So
if you're not interested in money, it's a lot easier to not be greedy.
Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of like just predetermined by that. So I think a lot of suffering is just the unleashing of the valve, because whether we like it or not, in a really deep suffering hole, we let go of our conscious restraints to the unconscious bias that is us at our core mode, and we release the character that is in. So if you're an angry person and you try to hold it back, and someone just gives you shit, or you're like in a really stressful situation in a team, and then you just go ham at them, and actually let them know what you think and whatever. That's a little bit of like more of the core feeling of what that person actually has. Not altogether everything, because they consciously can think differently, but it'll show you some levels of character. So there you go. While dreams may go to die in suffering, character will be displayed during the suffering.
Wowza. Dang.
That's one-itis.
Yeah, the other thing for me summing up was, I don't think it's a static thing neither. So your character, your virtue, like we're saying, it is buildable. It probably lags a fair bit. So whatever's happening now, whatever the public perception of your character is, I'd say it lags a bit from whatever is actually happening now. So it will take years for Sam Bankman-Fried to be able to wipe, like have any sort of semblance, at least in my eyes, to be able to come back from where he got himself and where he's at.
Well,
now.
Interesting, because I know you haven't been keeping up with anything today,
I know he got
at the
arrested.
very least, but yes. So he's got arrested, so maybe he'll be in jail long enough so that he does come out and maybe people forget about it.
Yeah, who knows? Well, not even forget, but maybe it's like, what if he
redeems himself?
Yeah, what if he created a podcast? What if he joined Podcasting 2.0? He's just in there and he's like, look, I screwed up and it happened because of these incentives, these reasons. I think value for value is actually a really strong model. I can see how this would have positive effects for me, and kind of co-opposite.
Here's a question for Kyrin.
And then it's like, okay, effective altruism, Sam.
Here's a question for you, Kyrin, and maybe even the listeners at home. So if you're listening to this, if Sam Bankman-Fried decided to go into Podcasting 2.0, and then he's like, okay, cool, and then he sends you in a Boostagram 1,000 Bitcoin.
Oh my god.
Sends 1,000 Bitcoin. Like, thank you very much. Here's my support for Podcasting 2.0. What do you do? What's your level of virtue and character there? What's your default?
I probably would never touch that wallet again. I just don't. I think only bad things could come about. Anything to do with that. Yeah. And the greatest distance I can put between myself and that Bitcoin is probably a good thing.
Yeah, because my immediate reaction was like, look, I think I'd have to just probably give back, like give the money that came through to like people who might have been affected or something to that. So, I'd give like 20 back or something, but no, I'd be it's like up to 1,000. No, I'd be like, my immediate thought was like, oh, well, give back the 1,000 to like the people who are probably in need of it or whatever. But
if you go to the
FTX
website,
you can get into shit.
You could.
I'll deposit the 1,000 Bitcoin into FTX.
Dude, it's probably still open. That's how fucked up this shit is. Yeah. How crazy? That's one of the craziest things. Like you can still deposit. The actual shit? So
Virtuous characteristics, folks.
Yeah, I think much like Phocion, I think it's the best strategy mentally even if it might have some shit outcomes. So I think in terms of, for me, I'm kind of undecided as to whether it'll actually have the best outcomes in terms of some metrics. No, it'll have the best outcome, I think, in the big, broader scale of what is good for me, what is good for the planet, what's good for humanity. But I can see on several very important metrics, having character and virtue and really pursuing it can negatively impact some of those. But I think as an overall strategy, it's probably... I certainly don't see it hurting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
I'd agree with that. So there we go, everyone. Thank you for joining the Mere Mortals podcast for a musing session. It was a pretty long one. This is a value for value podcast. So this is how we show our virtue. This is how we show our character and our ethics. The value for value model essentially means we do not take advertising. We do not put paywalls. We have no incentives to tell you to fucking join FTX or to try out this product or anything like that. Any recommendations we make on anything like that is purely, I read this book because I wanted to read this book. Juan talked about Ryan Holiday because he likes Ryan Holiday. Yeah. There's pure, no incentives.
Yeah, even to the point of being like, hey, I like Tim Ferriss. I like Tim Ferriss NFT. I own the fucking NFT.
Correct.
If you want to buy it, go do it. Yeah. If I was like, I'm telling you people, if you want to enjoy like a fictional ride in the NFT space, fucking go buy it. However, it's like, we're not getting paid for it. And if we were, if for some ungodly reason, like, Tim's like, hey, Juan, if you say this, I will give you one. I think even now, really, with the value for value, I'd be like, no, that's actually, in fact, give me one just because you want to give me one.
Yeah.
But I will say this because it's my own accord.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. The kind of transparency that comes with value for value. Every single Satoshi, apart from the ones that don't make it to us, I talked about in our episodes. So you'll know all of our influences, all of our incentives right up the front. And so we do all this value straight for you listeners, you beautiful people at home. You are more than welcome to just take it and never contribute back at all. But we would appreciate it very much if you did send something back. So you can do that by sharing it with a friend, saying, "Damn, Mere Mortals guys, they know what they're fucking talking about. Check out this episode. You might enjoy this one."
Juanitis and what was it?
Juanitis and Kyrinus, something like that.
Kyrinus.
You could do something, some talent. So if you notice that our mics are fuzzy or wavy, if you notice that there's some spelling mistakes in the chapter show notes, if you notice some of the images are wrong, if you have suggestions on how to get a cheap Raspberry Pi, all of these sort of things. I actually found one for $169, which I was like, I think that's way cheaper than
what they used to be.
I think they were like in the 300s, man. Damn, when I was last looking. So yeah, it's a
good value.
Good value on that. And then of course, if you want to contribute financially to the show, because this does require a little bit of moolah up front. We've got to pay for some costs for lighting, equipment.
5 figures, folks. 5 figures.
I was chatting with someone recently who pays 5 figures to make their podcast, and ours doesn't cost that much at least. I put our costs, I think, somewhere around $1 or $2 grand. And then add on, cameras and shit like that, which are one-off expenses. So over the long run, it's probably like $1 grand and a bit, $200 grand a bit a year. Yep. We split it equally. But that still does cost some, and we appreciate getting boostagrams coming in. So I would just recommend for today using the Breeze wallet. Not many people use it, but it is a useful Lightning wallet just on its own case.
Good for an onboarding experience.
Yes, you can get Bitcoin directly from there using a credit card or debit card, and then you can send that straight to us. Or if you want to do another way, you can earn some sats in Fountain simply by listening to podcasts. Yeah,
that's so cool. It's really cool.
And, we very much appreciate 10 sats, 100 sats, 1,000 sats, 10,000 sats. Big ballers like Petar, 100,000 and 1 million sats over their support over the show. And there are incentives for that if you get up to 100,000 that. 100 sats. Oh, geez.
100,000
sats. We'll send you a shirt.
Yeah. So we're basically giving you back the money. We're basically giving it back to you.
But in shirt form.
Yeah, in shirt form. So we give you value, you give it back, we give it back again.
Yeah, that's how it works.
You don't even get, that's it. That's
the value
done.
for value.
Yeah.
And then, who knows? Yeah, the payday one day we'll get more sats out of it than when we've put in.
That's just how it works, folks. That's
Yeah.
how it works.
Anyway, everyone, thank you for joining in. There will be a live show next week, but I'm probably going to do it on the Thursday.
Yep.
So I have to move that day aside. I'm not sure if you're available on that day.
I think I am, yep.
Okay, awesome. And there will also be some stuff related to Christmas. So there might be some jingling, jangling, some episodes which might get shifted around.
Shifted here or there,
but yes, the Mere Mortals will still be here. We'll still be producing stuff at the very least on a weekly, but usually, I hate this word, bi-weekly, because
I hate that word.
Yeah, twice a week.
Twice a week.
There'll be stuff coming out.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone for tuning in. Juan, take us away.
Good. Me more lights. That's it. One out.
Kyrin out.
Oof. Good. Good.
Yeah, that's it, everyone. So if you're still tuning in and you want to have a little chatsy, I will be in the Discord as of usual. The link for that Discord is in the little show notes. Oh, shit, I actually forgot to click that. Dang.
The one for joining us?
Yeah. Send button. Apologies for everyone who, in this case, it's Petar who joins in the chat. Yeah, dang, that's annoying. Anywho.
I was wondering why I was so quiet.
Everyone, thanks for joining us. Peace out, and we'll catch you.